It was a quiet Sunday morning when Mark heard the soft click of a doorknob turning from the hallway. His wife, Laura, was making pancakes in the kitchen, and the smell of maple syrup filled their cozy suburban home. But that sound, it wasn't normal. Mark froze mid-step. The door handle twisted again, this time with a deliberate jiggle, like someone was trying to unlock it. For a second, he thought maybe it was their son coming home early from college. But then came the metallic scrape of keys. Several of them. Mark's pulse quickened. No one besides him and Laura had a key. Through the frosted glass window, a familiar figure appeared, blonde hair in a tight bun, clipboard in hand. Wearing that smug HOA badge. Karen. The neighborhood president who acted like every lawn and mailbox was her personal property, Mark whispered, "Laura. She's at the door again." Laura frowned, wiping her hands. What does she want this time? Before he could answer, the front door handle turned once more and clicked open halfway. Mark lunged forward, slamming it shut from the inside. Karen! What on earth do you think you're doing? He shouted. Karen's calm, syrupy voice floated through the door. Just conducting a routine property check. HOA regulations allow access when homeowners are unresponsive. Laura's eyes flashed. Unresponsive? We were literally making breakfast. Karen didn't flinch. She just smiled and said, "You'll be hearing from the HOA board, Mark." What she didn't know was that Laura wasn't just any homeowner's wife, she worked for the local sheriff's department. And she was already reaching for her badge. Laura's hand tightened around the badge clipped to her belt. Her calm breakfast morning had turned into something straight out of a bad drama. She opened the door just a few inches, keeping the chain lock still latched. Karen stood there, her HOA polo crisp and her posture confident, holding a keyring in her hand, silver, shiny, with their house number on one of the tags. Laura's voice was cool but firm. "Where did you get that key, Karen?" Karen raised an eyebrow, pretending innocence. "It's an HOA master key, dear. We keep backups for emergencies. Safety reasons, you know?" Mark stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "That's illegal. You can't just walk into someone's home because of a policy." Karen shrugged lightly. "Then maybe you shouldn't ignore HOA inspection notices. Your lawn's height violates Section 4B, and your porch furniture doesn't match the neighborhood color guide." Laura took a deep breath, her law enforcement instincts kicking in. She didn't want to cause a scene, but this woman's arrogance was beyond belief. "Karen," she said evenly, "you've just admitted to possessing a key that allows entry into private property without consent. Do you have any idea what that means?" For a moment, Karen's confidence flickered, but only for a moment. "Don't threaten me," she said coldly. "I run this neighborhood." Laura smiled faintly. "Then you'll love hearing what happens when law meets your HOA rules." Mark leaned closer and whispered, "Let her make one more mistake." Laura nodded. "She will," she murmured. "And when she does, I'll be ready." Karen turned, walking away with a smirk, still holding the master key. Laura watched her go, her mind already working. Tomorrow, she planned to pay a quiet visit to city records to uncover just how deep this so-called HOA authority really went. The next morning, Laura sat in her unmarked police SUV outside the county records office, a folder of HOA documents resting on the passenger seat. Sunlight glinted off the windshield, and the American flag fluttered lazily above the building. She'd seen arrogance before, but something about Karen's master key didn't sit right. It wasn't just power, it was control. Inside, the clerk, an older man named Dale, recognized her instantly. "Morning, Deputy. What brings you down here?" Laura leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Need information on the Willow Creek HOA. Specifically, their legal access rights to homeowners' properties." Dale frowned. "That's unusual. Never had anyone ask that before." He clicked through old files, the computer humming softly. Then he paused, staring at the screen. "Well, that's strange." Laura leaned in. "What is it?" He pointed. "They've filed copies of key authorization forms for at least 10 houses, yours included. But none of them have county approval stamps." These are fake. Laura's jaw clenched. So Karen's been forging access documents? Looks like it, Dale said, printing the files. This could be serious fraud. Laura gathered the papers, her heart pounding, not with fear, but with focus. She could already picture Karen's smug face. Thank you, Dale. This might finally stop her. As she walked out into the sunlight, her phone buzzed. A text from Mark, she's here again. Trying something at the backyard gate. Laura's pulse spiked. She jumped into her car, siren silent but ready. The sound of tires screeching broke the suburban stillness. By the time she reached home, Mark stood in the yard, red-faced with anger. Karen was there too, clipboard in hand, arguing with him about unsanctioned patio decorations. Laura got out slowly, one hand resting on her badge. She smiled calmly. Morning, Karen. Funny running into you again. Karen turned, startled but trying to stay composed. Oh, Laura, just doing my job. Laura held up the printed documents. Then I guess you'll enjoy explaining these to the sheriff's office. Karen's confident smirk faltered for the first time as Laura held out the printed papers. Sunlight bounced off the crisp white pages, highlighting the county seal missing from every form. Where did you get those? Karen asked, her voice tighter than usual. Public Records Office, Laura replied calmly. Turns out your authorization forms aren't worth the ink they're printed with. Karen's eyes darted toward Mark, then back to Laura. You can't accuse me of something like that. I've been running this HOA for 6 years. People trust me. Mark crossed his arms. Trust isn't the same as fear. Karen. Everyone's too scared to stand up to you. But that ends today. Karen's composure cracked. I don't need to listen to this nonsense. You've both been in violation for months, your grass height, your porch color, even that fence. Laura took a step closer, her tone firm but calm. Karen, let me explain something clearly. I've seen people hide behind fake authority before. It always ends the same way, with accountability. For a brief second, Karen looked lost, as if realizing the power she'd built was slipping away. But then her pride kicked in. You think a few papers will scare me? The board will back me up. Laura smiled slightly. Then maybe you should call them right now. Because I already called the county sheriff's office. They'll want to see these forms too. Karen's clipboard trembled in her hands. You called the sheriff? Laura nodded. Yes. And as it happens, I work there. Karen's face drained of color. Mark couldn't hide a small grin. Before she could respond, the sound of approaching tires echoed from the street. A black county vehicle pulled up in front of the house. 2 officers stepped out, badges shining in the sunlight. Karen took a step back, whispering, You wouldn't. Laura's tone was steady. Karen, you've crossed too many lines. It's time someone held you accountable. Karen's usual confidence vanished as the 2 sheriff's deputies approached the driveway. Her clipboard trembled in her hand, the metal clip rattled like a warning bell. Mark stood beside Laura, arms folded, watching the scene unfold with quiet satisfaction. For months, he had endured Karen's notes taped to their door, citations about lawn edges, mailbox color, even their wind chime. But now, the tables had turned. Ma'am, one deputy said politely, we've received reports of potential document forgery under Willow Creek HOA management. We'd like to ask you a few questions. Karen tried to compose herself, straightening her shoulders. This is outrageous. I'm simply enforcing the neighborhood standards. I have every right. Laura calmly handed the deputy the papers. These were filed under her signature. They authorize key access to private homes without county approval. The deputy flipped through the pages, his brows furrowing. That's not standard procedure, ma'am. Karen stammered, those were emergency measures. We needed access for safety checks. Mark spoke up. Safety checks don't involve walking into people's homes when they're making breakfast. A tense silence fell. The sound of birds and a distant lawn mower filled the gap as Karen's breathing quickened. The second deputy took out a notepad. We'll need to bring you in for questioning, Ms. Karen. Please come with us. Karen's voice cracked. You can't do this to me. I'm the president of this HOA. Laura met her eyes evenly. And I'm the wife of the deputy sheriff you just tried to intimidate. For a long moment, Karen stood frozen, the suburban queen finally dethroned on her own manicured lawn. She finally whispered, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Laura's tone softened, just slightly. That's what happens when rules become more important than people. As the deputies guided Karen toward their car, Laura exhaled deeply. It wasn't satisfaction she felt, it was relief, but what she didn't know was that this wasn't over, because Karen still had friends on the HOA board. And one of them wasn't done yet. The next morning, Laura sipped her coffee on the porch, the world unusually quiet. The sun was just climbing above the rooftops, and the faint hum of sprinklers filled the air. She thought it was finally over. Karen had been escorted away, and for once, the neighborhood felt peaceful. But peace in Willow Creek was never more than temporary. Her phone buzzed. A new email notification appeared from the HOA board. Subject: Immediate action required, violations on your property. Laura sighed, opening it, then frowned. The letter was signed by Richard Hall, the HOA vice president. It demanded a $2,000 fine for non-compliance with board decorum, effective immediately. Mark came outside, reading over her shoulder. They're retaliating, he muttered. Karen might be gone, but her friends are still pulling the strings. Laura's eyes hardened. They just made their second mistake. Within hours, she drove to the HOA office, a small beige building near the park. Inside, Richard sat at a desk, tapping a pen against a stack of papers. Deputy, he said smoothly, I assume you're here about the fines. Laura crossed her arms. I'm here about your misuse of authority. Karen's documents were fraudulent. You all signed off on them. Richard smirked. That's her problem, not ours. Laura placed a recorder on the table, pressing play. Karen's voice echoed through the room. The board knows everything I do. They gave me the master keys. Richard's face drained of color. You can't use that. Laura leaned closer. Actually, I can. And I already sent copies to the county attorney. He slammed his pen down. You're ruining this neighborhood. No, Laura said softly. I'm saving it. When she stepped outside, the morning sunlight hit her face, warm and reassuring. Justice was close now, but the final twist was still waiting. Because while Laura exposed their lies, Karen wasn't done yet. Somewhere across town, a familiar blue HOA polo lay neatly folded on a chair, and Karen was planning her return. That weekend, the neighborhood held an emergency HOA meeting. Laura arrived early, her uniform crisp, her expression calm. She wasn't here as a neighbor anymore, she was here as an officer of the law. One by one, the board members arrived, whispering nervously. The air buzzed with tension, and the chairs squeaked as people sat down. Then the door opened. Every head turned. Karen stepped in. She wasn't in uniform anymore, just jeans, a sweater, and a face that had lost its arrogance. I just came to apologize, she said softly. I made mistakes. I thought control meant respect. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Laura stayed silent, watching. Karen reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of papers. These are every document I falsified. Every note I faked. The board helped me. But I let it happen. The room fell silent. Richard tried to speak, but Laura stood. Karen, why come clean now? Tears welled in her eyes. Because last night I heard my daughter tell someone she wanted to be just like me. And that scared me more than anything. For a moment. Even Richard looked down, ashamed. Laura walked over and took the documents. You're doing the right thing. The sheriff's office will take it from here. Karen nodded. I know. She looked around the room. Maybe now this neighborhood can finally breathe again. Weeks later, the HOA board dissolved, new elections were held, and for the first time in years, Willow Creek felt peaceful. Children played in the park again. Neighbors smiled. And on her porch, Laura watched the sunset, holding Mark's hand, whispering, "Finally home." The master key that once opened every door was now sealed in an evidence locker, a quiet reminder of how power, when unchecked, destroys trust, and in that silence, justice truly settled in, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.